People pay good money to see this movie. When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
Guardiões são protetores. Somos verdadeiros protetores de água, floresta, animais. Isso nos transforma no maior crime ambiental do Brasil.
Se parar isso aí, eu vou passar fome.
É um fluxo financeiro que ele está altamente interligado nos mercados internacionais.
Protegemos a floresta, o mundo há milhares de anos. Vocês nunca tiveram direito a caçar e a pescar. Pelo menos 600 de nós já foram assassinados desde 2014.
Meu coração chora. Qualquer coisa, pistoleiro, ou madeireira, me matam.
A opção onde não existe. Onde não existe no mundo.
Destruir a Amazônia é, em parte, destruir a nós mesmos.
Morre se preciso for por esse pedaço de floresta que existe.
Ele marcou o pé certo pro mundo. Somos guardiões.
Essa luta ela é minha, essa luta é sua, essa luta é nossa.
Hey folks, welcome to a special episode of The Projection Booth. I'm your host, Mike White. On this episode, I'm talking with Chelsea Greene and Rob Grobman all about their 2023 film called We Are Guardians. It is a documentary all about the burning of the Amazon in Brazil. Had a great time talking with them. I definitely fucked up in this episode and referred to producer Fisher Stevens as producing Blackfish. Yeah, I was totally thinking of The Cove, but said Blackfish anyway. Because, you know, what's one devastating documentary versus another, right? Just give me a punch in the stomach. Hopefully this interview is better than a punch in the stomach. Had a great time talking with Ms. Greene and Mr. Grobman, and I hope you enjoy listening to it. Chelsea and Rob, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to talk with you about We Are Guardians. How do you two know each other? What's your working relationship like?
Me and Rob, interestingly enough, and this is part of the story of many synchronicities of making this film, we met making this film after we had both gone to the Amazon independently to try to do something, anything we could do to help with the Amazon fires. We were introduced by a journalist that we had both worked with, and he told me, oh, there's this guy from Oregon who's shooting all the same things as you. You're shooting all the same content. You should give him a call. And I was living on the East Coast at a time, and I've always wanted to go to Oregon. And I called him months later, and we figured out we had complimentary footage. And he said, come out to Oregon, and let's see about working together. And so I moved to Oregon right before the COVID lockdown.
Our relationship and friendship was born out of COVID, and I mean, just a shared passion for making films that inspire and hoping to bring these messages and these important voices into the fold. We even interviewed the same scientist on the same afternoon, back to back. Our two teams, like ships in the night, passed, and we never met each other at that moment. But I mean, months later in the editing room, we realized that we had done that, and yeah, it just kind of felt fated that we were meant to meet each other and make this film.
Yeah, and speaking of our, voices that need to be heard, it's like we also co-directed this with an Indigenous director too. So like the story of all of us coming together to make this film, the directing team can't, be without him. We met him on a beach one day in Pará State by the mouth of the Amazon River. He was shooting something with Media Indígena, his journalistic group. And that was another fated moment, right, Rob? We found Edivan.
Yeah, it was really cool because you just like meet certain people in your life and it feels like you've known each other for a long time. And that was the case with both Chelsea and Edivan. And he was just excited to help us with our project. He was working with Sonia Guajajara. He's actually cousins to Sonia Guajajara, who's the Minister of Indigenous Peoples in Brazil, and one of the most important indigenous leaders in the world. And he was, just super excited to hop into our project and support us. He was at first a camera person and doing what he could to help us in the field as a producer. And it was very clear that from early on, we needed his guidance and leadership, especially as we were navigating relationships and filming with indigenous communities. And the three of our talents and the ways that we look at the world combined, I think it's a real testament of what this film is. And the film in general is a testament of the kind of global team that we brought around it. We had Atanas Georgiev, who is an editor from Macedonia, who helped us initially really kind of like get the film structure together and bring in a whole other sensibility than we have as people from the United States. Yeah, it was a world effort to make We Are Guardians, for sure.
You both independently decide we need to go down to the Amazon and start shooting stuff. Like, when is this? Because you talked about the pandemic, and this was before that. But what is the time frame here that you were actually shooting?
It was August of 2019, and the fires, if you remember, made international headlines in the Brazilian Amazon, and it was all over. CNN, Fox News, everybody was covering it. For a news cycle, basically, probably a week or two. I was there in Oregon with my creative partner Antonio, and it was just like, man, like we've got to do something. It's just like, what are we doing if we're burning the Amazon rainforest? Well, we have wildfires that happen in Oregon every year. There are unprecedented wildfires happening all over the world. It just did not make sense to me that we could be burning the Amazon at a time like this on purpose. And so, just a deep calling to support with our talents and our efforts. And we jumped in. I mean, it was maybe a naive decision, not realizing how big of a project and how big of a topic we were diving into. But it has been just an incredible journey where we've come from and what we've been able to do. And to be at the end, like really, really excited to share We Are Guardians. It's a project I'm proud of. And it's something I think that is a really important message for the world to hear.
Right. I had been studying deforestation before that for a previous film about palm oil and deforestation in Borneo and Indonesia. And until 2017, Brazil was actually a leader in the world in reducing deforestation. And so after knowing that and seeing that the president was on the news telling everybody to burn it down now and just getting rid of all the legislation and changes that have been made to make progress, it just stabbed me in the heart. I said, oh my God, what else should I be doing with my life but addressing this?
And it's so admirable that y'all came together. It could have been the Armageddon and Deep Impact of Amazon documentaries, and said that you joined forces is pretty great.
It was pretty cool at that moment because I think the project just got some juice. We got some unprecedented momentum at that moment where we decided to come together. And quickly, we had our producing team that was kind of locked into the project. Zach Kilberg and Iz Webb came on, a social construct, and they really helped us formulate the team, made connections with Bruce Cohen, who is an amazing producer on the film, and Fisher Stevens. And at that point, we had kind of rocket fuel, and it was just off to the races. And we were down back in the Amazon in October of 2020 for 5 months, and that ended up being like one of our longest production trips of the whole project.
Right, and we found Edivan, our Indigenous co-director, at that time, which then changed the project. Again, it turned us into a strong tripod where instead of two Americans, we were a Brazilian Indigenous, led team. That was a huge one. And, that also was mid-process for me and Rob learning Portuguese because Edivan does not speak English. And so we also got to learn some of his Indigenous language of Tupi. What a beautiful process it all was, right? That we could meet each other in that way.
Chelsea's basically, I would say, fluent in Portuguese at this moment, and like I can struggle through conversation, and it's taken a lot to make this film happen. Like we were down there over 16 months between 2019 and 2023, 2024. and back and forth. And every time we were back in the States or back in Europe, we were editing, and it's just yeah, it was an incredible effort to get it done as quickly as we did, feeling just the urgency of the topic, and that it needed to get out as quickly as we could.
Rob is being bashful. They call him Hobby Guajajara.
I really enjoyed learning Tupi and get my time with the Guajajara and the indigenous peoples was just an experience of a lifetime. It's just really unique when you get to drop in with people that are living in a different paradigm, a different reality, and truly live from the forest in a lot of ways, in a lot of their traditional ways. And yeah, I just have a certain resonance with different languages, and Tupi was one that I picked up quickly, much more quickly than Portuguese. Portuguese is tough. It is a difficult language, at least for me.
I was just captured by the soul of Brazil. Like, I had to learn Portuguese. If for those of you who haven't been to Brazil, there's just a special vibe, and the people are so warm. You just really want to be a part of it.
It's fun. Yeah, they're an amazing culture in that.
And I'll never forget Rob playing guitar, playing Bob Marley covers to the indigenous communities, and they love reggae. They were dancing and just going wild. It was so fun. So you speak the language of music as well.
Yeah, yeah. Having a guitar on production is pretty useful, and meeting people, it's a pretty disarming thing. So
I think you bought a guitar 3 times when we went down there and gave it away each time.
yeah, we got a guitar on each production trip, and yeah, you got to have fun along the way, and we did. We had so much fun making this film. As much the challenge and the struggle that we had throughout, it was really incredibly amazing, and testament to the people that were came around and were a part of it. It was so fun. They're like family to us.
Right, it's so heavy. We're heading on missions deep in the forest that take all day, multiple days, with loggers that are life-threatening, don't want to be found, armed and dangerous, and we got to make light of the situation and enjoy ourselves at the same time, maintain the relationships.
I was going to ask about some of the challenges, but that sounds pretty challenging. I mean, the language is one thing, but having these armed and dangerous loggers is something else entirely, I'm sure.
Right. Well, part of the backbone of the narrative of the film is the indigenous people risking their lives to go and monitor and patrol the territory and try and find the loggers that don't want to be found and know they're committing a federal crime and capture them on camera. So that was difficult.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Fisher Stevens, and like until Blackfish came out, I don't think a lot of people realize just how much he is invested in documentaries and making great documentaries.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I mean, The Cove was, I think, for Chelsea and I, just a pivotal documentary, and he was a large part of as a producer on that. And he was just an incredible friend and mentor for us. You have producers on some projects that lend their name or lend their connections, and they kind of helicopter through the project and help in different ways. But he was there in the trenches with us throughout the process, and teaching us about just experiences that he's had in the past, and just thoughts that he had in the direction of the film. I mean, he really pushed us to be as raw and as intimate with the participants as possible, with our protagonists, and kind of go in that direction of a true verite style documentary. And incredibly grateful for his insights in that way. And yeah, just a great guy. Fisher is awesome, and just really believed in us and believed in what we were doing. And I think that alone just helped propel us.
Right. Having his insights was so helpful. I'll never forget showing him the footage of Valgir, the illegal logger, for the first time, and him saying, wow, that's a main character, because we were interviewing so many people to find the right person to carry the story and to find the pieces to the puzzle, because it's a complicated mosaic of a character-driven story, right? And so, yeah, when Fisher said that's the most compelling person I've ever seen you guys film, we were like, okay, we're on to something.
I also remember, I think in the next sentence, he was like, and you guys are going to need to go back and film more with him. And just, I was like, wow, okay. Because getting to Valgir from the United States is literally a 3 or 4 day journey from, airplane, flying to Sao Paulo or Rio, flying up to Portobello in the Amazon, taking a 12-hour car ride to the city that's nearest to the indigenous reserve where it was happening, and then driving out another like half day to a full day into the jungle where we met him. Incredible lengths to get out there. And of course, you're going into a space that people are very, if not like, it's much more than suspicious of journalists. They can be
Hostile?
outright hostile towards journalists. And we tried our best to just first off hire really great translators who could be, just a really wonderful energy and kind of forward face of our small production team, but also then carrying an energy that was like in a genuine way of like, we really want to understand your story. We really want to understand what's happening for you. We're not coming in with an agenda or trying to deceive you into being a part of this film, and we're going to just make you into the bad guy here. I think we're really lucky to find Valjeer because he felt that I think initially and very quickly was like, cool, yeah, you guys can hang around, it was almost like as if he was waiting for somebody to ask him what was happening in his life. And to be asked that question, he's a bit of a showman. Like he definitely like in the camp as well amongst all the other loggers. Like he is the guy that's holding court every night by the fire. He's the guy that's just, yeah, he's very full of life in his way. And so I think also he really took to just like, oh great, there's a bunch of cameras following me around right now. This is what I've been waiting for.
And it's funny because he's the same off camera as on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the craziest part of that whole thing was 6 months passed from when we first met him and filmed as much as we could with him over about a week's time. And then we came back to Brazil. And I mean, Rob is not even saying like the difficulty of coordinating all these amazing, we had like a sound guy and a translator and, an indigenous liaison who worked with the loggers in the past, but now wanted to help us, coordinating everybody's schedules to get to this remote corner of the Amazon. But then finding Valjeer again, he doesn't use a phone. It's you're like, where do we find him? The people that used to work with him were no longer working with him anymore. And so it's like finding a needle in a haystack in an area, bigger the size of Massachusetts with a tangled web of logging roads and no service. And the craziest thing happened. We were coming back to the territory, and as we rolled out into this like main logging road where other roads branched off, we were saying, oh man, how are we going to find this guy? And somebody was sitting by the side of the road in the exact moment that we were going to give up and said, Valjeer has been waiting for you. He sent me to meet up with you. He had an intuition that we were coming back. We don't know how he could have
Whether it was
known.
intuition or somebody let him know that we were there, but he knew that we were there, and he was like a mile away from where we were at that time. And the guy brought us right
Tell the Americans that we're over there.
Another like insane synchronicity. It was just, yeah, remarkable.
He got very close to the forest. I mean, he's been working in the forest for his whole life, and he got very tuned in with the spirit of the forest in many ways. He actually, from the first time we met him to 6 months later, he lost his path. He's out looking for trees to cut, and he marks a path with a machete. And he lost his path and was lost out there in the woods for a week. He got dysentery, almost died. He said the jaguar was just waiting for him to get a little weaker so she could eat him. And he made it out of that situation. And then we filmed most of the film with him, a couple months after that.
You talked about how you met up before COVID, and I was curious, how did COVID affect the production?
It affected it in a lot of ways. Like we had to be, of course, like traveling during COVID was a big mystery, and like what would be allowed and what would, like what were we able to do? And then, of course, interacting with pretty sensitive communities. A lot of the indigenous communities and reserves completely shut down for a number of years. So there was just no contact that was happening there. But I don't know. I think for better or for worse, Brazil took a fairly relaxed approach to COVID in a lot of ways. And so we were able to move without too much restriction in that way. We were getting tested like every week, every time we were interacting with somebody new, following all that COVID protocol. But I think Chelsea and I both felt like we couldn't let that stop us from finishing the film in a timely way. And it was an interesting window at that time because a lot of production in the film industry shut down in 2020. So a lot of people were looking for different projects that were happening. And we had a project that was already rolling, that was ready to go, and we were ready to continue to shoot. So it was a strange window that allowed a lot to happen for us as well.
Even backing up, yeah, to right when we first got together in Oregon, Rob, having everyone be at home, not with other things to do, we were able to get on the phone with so many high-powered people to really bring the team together. Imagine getting a hold of our funders at that time without there being so much space and time in their life. So have these in-depth conversations and really help them feel the spirit of the project when they get so many other funding requests. So many things came together. And of course, we had to follow Netflix protocol for shooting and imagine the suffocating humidity and heat of the Amazon, but wearing a mask the whole time.
Tell me about the post process. Were you editing throughout this? I mean, you talked about how many times you had to go back down to shoot. Are you editing in between?
Yeah, so we edited in between the second and third and fourth shoots. And that was because we found an Oscar-winning editor, Atanas Georgiev, who has, limited time, and he came on after our big 6-month shoot when we were pretty certain that we'd found all our main characters, and he's actually now a professor in dramaturgy, and so we said, let's construct what we have, and we ended up going back 2 more times, which was needed, and actually having Edivan in the territory too to be able to film some of the things that were ongoing was, happening throughout. So that was critical for constructing the story as it unfolded over time.
And then in the end, Chelsea and I took over the editing, the main editing role. We had learned so much from Atanas and learned Avid through the process of editing with him. And it was just a vision that we needed to see through. And we were so blessed to find Elise Spiegel, who is our editing consultant at the very end of the process, who really helped to transform the project into what you see today. She did a number of amazing documentaries. This is Congo and Crude, some great documentaries, and just again was like it was a whole education working with her, working with Atanas, and then we were there at the computer. I mean, it was a slog. At the end, it was a real slog. Just trying to muscle out what we had and battling with doubt about would we ever finish the film? Would it be what we were hoping it would be? And yet we got it together, and we got into hot docs in the spring of 2023, and that was just a deadline now that we needed to finish the film, which was huge. It changed everything there. So within a couple weeks, we had a whole new score, which was amazing. Jacob Yaffe and his team that just did fantastic work with the music. They did that in 20 days. It was like 30 pieces of music. It was a marathon, but we felt like we were sprinting the whole time.
I've never been more burned out in my life.
So what is it like when you actually get to watch this with an audience for the first time?
My heart was going to explode out of my chest. I was sitting in the audience at Hot Docs in the huge theater, and my whole family and all my friends had flown to Toronto. And of course, we have Fisher there, and Puyi, and Edivan, and, it was just, I couldn't relax the entire time. I was so, excited, anxious. Everyone loved it, though. It was also one of my first times speaking on stage, and now it's funny looking back at that because doing a Q&A or speaking to the audience is so second nature now. Don't even think about it. Whereas then I was very nervous.
Yeah, we hadn't shown it to anybody, so we really didn't know how people would react. And at that time, I just remember like people were clapping, and it felt like well received at the end of when the credits rolled for that first screening, but I still was just like unsure what people would say. Was it clear enough? All these different questions that you're battling in post-production. And in general, it seems like people really have loved the film. It's meant a lot. It's been very clear. And so yeah, but that first screening was really just nerve-wracking.
Yeah, people were moved to tears. I remember looking around and seeing the way people were affected by it and feeling it. It's different when you watch a film in theaters, right? You can feel people's energy. As we were watching and I was seeing how the way that the scenes were poetically stitched together and all of our hard work, it really was a joyful moment to see that people were feeling it and to feel that people were understanding and feeling and getting emotionally invested.
You mentioned doing a lot of Q&As. I'm curious, how many times have you had this at different festivals or venues where you were doing Q&As afterwards? I don't need an exact number, but like an estimate.
Well, that's a great question because that was a huge part of our impact campaign, right? And less about me and Rob being there, but having the Indigenous leaders themselves and our co-director. And we attended, must have been at least 10 to 20 festival premieres with somebody to do a Q&A from the team. And then we did, I think, 1,000 in-person screenings worldwide, not necessarily with a Q&A, but sometimes having, experts in the field speaking. And then last summer, we did a theatrical release in North America with 64 cities that we attended 13 screenings. And so that was, and a lot of screenings too had, again, experts and local Native American Indigenous leadership to bless and do a prayer or a song. And so there was a lot of in-person event building, which we felt was really important for impact.
Also getting to screen on Capitol Hill, getting to screen of Parliament members in the UK, Spain, and getting to go to places with Edivan and Puri Tembe. Like Chelsea said, this part of around impact was really like this is more than just like an afterthought. It was like a seed of what the film was. It was like we need to do something to help change the situation, and how can we best do that and utilize the film as a tool to bring about change. So it was it's been amazing to get to, like, especially travel with Edivan and Pui and allow them the space to speak and in these really important spaces.
I wish we could have brought Marsal to more screenings. He's like the teddy bear warrior heart of the film type character, and the audience loves him. Remember, we brought him to Belém. It was like one of his first times leaving the territory and seeing his wonderment at the big city. We brought him to the Amazon Summit, and we brought him to the Rio, Brazil premiere as well. He got to hang out on the beach in Rio, see the city.
Yeah, it was hard for him though. I remember it being, especially Rio, was really hard. Just being
It
away.
was overwhelmed. Yeah. True.
Overwhelm and being out of the territory, and yeah, it was just like it was tough for him to leave what he's known in that way.
Obviously, I know you're still supporting this film, but are you working on other things now?
Yeah, so we just premiered the film on global streaming platforms and are ongoing in some ways, mostly just supporting how we can with the territories and, Pui and Edivan that are doing reforestation projects in the territories and continuing to protect their land and attend events and leverage the film. So supporting that from afar, but I'm working more with Random Good Films now to help Impact produce and finish 3 films that they're working on about Indigenous communities, actually, in different ways. One is about Hindu, who is a global figure and speaking for Indigenous people and getting direct access funding for territorial and environmental protection. Another is about the Ba'aka Indigenous musicians in the Congo. And another is about the Kwe Bushmen in Botswana getting their land back, which be if the campaign is successful, they'll get one of the largest pieces of land back in Southern Africa and under Indigenous hands. Utilizing the niche that we've developed bringing this film into an impact campaign space for other films is currently what I'm working on. I have dreams of making another feature film and directing it, but I want to wait until the perfect story comes across, And Rob and I are also directing a short series that we're going to put on YouTube, utilizing some of the content from We Are Guardians that we hadn't been able to put in the film.
Yeah, I'm also working on a film about flow state with a good friend of mine, director Louis Fox, and it's kind of a modern interpretation of the Tao Te Ching, I would say, through the eyes of a number of amazing protagonists, Tai Chi master, a graffiti artist, an indigenous Hawaiian boat builder and navigator from the Big Island. Weaves almost as like I would say like a philosophical continuation of a lot of the themes that we brought up in We Are Guardians. You know, the concept of like, how do we reforest our mind? It's a bit of an answer to those types of questions of how do we get closer to nature? How do we recognize our place within it and flow with it, both as individuals and as a collective?
And how do we shift our very colonistic, patriarchal, structured system to a more regenerative and matriarchal one? You know, that's one thing. One of the films I'm producing is looking at. It's about, it's also in the Amazon with an indigenous woman protagonist whose name is Mapulu, and she's the first shaman of her culture, which she had to fight a patriarchal system that said women cannot be healers. They cannot have the role of a shaman. And so that's a really interesting story that's in production right now that I've been working on.
Where's the best place for people to keep up with you guys in the movie?
So you can follow We Are Guardians Film on Instagram and Facebook and subscribe to our email list on the website. And Random Good Films is a good place to find out and keep up to date with these films that I've just mentioned. Random Good is a production company that also produced We Are Guardians. So moving forward, if you're interested in this type of content, there's going to be amazing things more coming out soon. So you can subscribe on randomgoodfilms.com as well. And on the YouTube channel, we just launched a YouTube channel. So find Random Good Films on YouTube. And that's where Rob and I are going to launch our short series about the Amazon.
Rob and Chelsea, thank you so much for your time. This was great talking with you.
It was so great to talk with you too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. It was great.
Mergulho quanto ouro esparramado, burrice. Vamos parar de destruir continente lindo. Não é pasto do seu gado, tanta mata consumida. E vou sobrar. Vejo verde, esmeralda, cores vivas, selva bruta, botos e jacarés, onças e pirarucus. Amazônia, Mata Virgem, Índia Moça, Santa Cruz. Amazônia, nossas vidas, nossa alma, nossa luz. Voando sobre ela, vejo macacos pulam pela floresta lá embaixo, com mercúrio dentro dos rios. E vou sobrar a mão dos
l'Amazonie. Il faut sauver l'Amazonie. Flavio, il faut sauver l'Amazonie. Tous les arbres, tous les animaux, les papillons, les insectes, les oiseaux, les singes, les serpents, les grenouilles, tout le monde.